Hi class. So week 6, we're going to be talking about something kind of near and dear to my cold little heart, quantitative research. And the reason that I love this chapter is because this is the kind of research I generally engage in myself as a scientist. It is going to be the type of research you see the most common in the scientific literature. And the reason for that is because quantitative research is the kind of research that we use when we want to answer a question in a big way, a very generalizable way, in a very controlled way. So this is usually kind of the step that you do after qualitative research, and we'll talk about qualitative in the next chapter. But it's kind of technical, and there's a lot that goes into a quantitative study. So in this chapter, I want to make sure that you guys are comfortable with all the parts, really familiar with the design. Everything that you're going to be looking at here today is primarily going to be found in the methods section of a research article. So these are the kinds of things, if you've had trouble kind of understanding some of the methods as we've been going through and reading articles, this chapter is for you. It's probably going to shed a lot of light on some of the terms, some of the things that you see in there. You're like, why do they mention that, or what does that mean? That'll most likely pop up here in this chapter. So what we're going to kind of look at specifically is just, we'll be looking at different considerations, different kinds of variables. So in addition to the variables you want to look at, there's always going to be variables on the outside that are going to influence things. And in quantitative research specifically, it's very important to control for these as best as you can. So you may be studying hair color, you may be studying gender, you may be studying, drug of choice, but, things come into play. People are very complex. There's lots of different characteristics. You can't just only kind of isolate that part of a person. So we call those extraneous variables, and when you control for them, they're called control variables. So there's different ways to go about this, and you'll learn about that in the class. And then you're also going to learn about how to put groups together. So you talked about sampling already. You guys are familiar with sampling. So you know how important it is to have a very representative group. But once you have those groups, how do you split them up within the different conditions of your experiment? It's a really good question. And so you can sample fantastically, but if you don't put people into groups well, you can mess up your whole study. So one of the ways we do that is randomization. There's a couple of other ways. When you randomize, you don't have to sit there and think of every single possible outside factor outside of your control, which is impossible. A lot of those little factors are going to get evenly distributed across your groups, which kind of minimizes their impact on your results. You're also going to talk about whether your research that you're reading about is between or within subjects. Are you looking at 2 different groups or 3 different groups? Are you looking at one group of the same people, but you're looking at them at different times or places or using different products? So those are very important, obviously, to understand a study. And then you're just going to kind of go over some of the basic terminology in research design. There's basic types of research design that scientists tend to stick to. It helps to standardize in the field, and it just helps because this language is used universally. So as soon as you read what kind of study it is, it makes it easier for people to understand exactly what you did in fewer words. So your discussion this week is probably going to be one of your more intense, involved discussions that you've had so far. Don't be afraid. I also think it might be one of the most fun, definitely one of the most creative. You're actually going to come up with your own study. You haven't really gotten to do this yet, so I'm really excited. I love to see what people come up with. So you're going to come up with it from soup to nuts as far as the hypothesis, the variables you're going to look at, how you're going to design it. So you're going to kind of briefly summarize a methods section for a study of your own design. Don't worry too much about statistics, or you're not actually going to carry this study out, so feel free to do whatever you want. But take into consideration everything we've learned about sampling, about validity, and everything you learned here about design and control. So you'll have specific questions that I want you to answer in the discussion. And again, have fun with it. You're not actually going to have to do this study, so be creative. Do something that interests you. Do something that you wish you could see in the literature. Something that you've looked for and never could find, or something that you just think would be very interesting and useful. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to ask. I actually do this kind of research pretty often, so this is one that I'm always happy to help with. It's really exciting for me. I want you guys to be excited too. And I hope you have a great week. I'll see you guys next time.